This case takes place on the 20th of April, 2019. Megan Newton was an 18-year-old woman from a place called Stoke on Trent in England. Megan was an intelligent person who had ambitions to become the very first person to attend university in her family. She worked as a football coach and had a couple of other jobs too. Her goal was to gain a scholarship so she could study in America. She dreamed of becoming a sports therapist or a physiotherapist in the future. Megan also did lots of things for her community using her passion for sport. She would volunteer and give up her weekends to coach the Norton Wanderers under-7s team. She also helped to raise money so the team could have the equipment they needed. She was known to help anyone who needed it. If an elderly person couldn't get their shopping done, she would go and get it for them. So on the 20th of April 2019, Megan went on a night out with some of her close friends. She finished a day's work at the fish and chip shop before heading out on the bank holiday. She had a few drinks at a bar and then went to a nightclub. After the night was over, she headed to the taxi rank so she could get a lift home. Megan lived in a small apartment by herself, and as she waited for a taxi to arrive, she saw an old friend named Joseph Trevor. She knew Joseph from school, and he was a semi-pro football player, so the two of them had an obvious passion for sport and had plenty in common. Megan would often see Joseph on nights out, but they weren't close friends, but they were friendly enough. The two were having a chat at the taxi rank when Joseph told Megan that he had taken drugs that night, and that he even had a run-in with a police officer who had taken him back to the station and confiscated a bag from him. But they released him and told him he would have to return on a later date. Joseph then continued on with his night and headed to the taxi rank, where he bumped into Megan. He told her that his parents would be furious to see him in the state that he was in, and being the generous person she was, she told him that he would be welcome to stay the night at her place until the drugs wore off. Here we can see the pair get into a taxi together en route to Megan's apartment. Joseph's father sent him a message asking him where he was. He told a lie and sent a message back that he was staying with a male friend of his. The two approximately arrived at the apartment at 4 a.m, and from the footage here, everything seemed normal, and Megan appeared to be relaxed. There were no signs of what was to come. Megan opens the door and Joseph follows, and the door closes. Joseph then can be seen leaving the apartment around an hour and a half later, and as he does, he discards of some keys. But here we can see Joseph look down at his hands, and if you look closely at his hands, you can see that they are covered in blood. A few hours after Joseph had left, Megan's neighbours found the keys that had been discarded, and these keys were covered in blood. Her neighbours were of course greatly concerned for Megan's well-being, so they knocked on her door, and when nobody answered, they used the keys to get inside of her apartment, just so they could check on her. And once inside, they found the lifeless body of Megan. She had been stabbed and left for dead in her bed. The neighbours contacted the police, and an investigation soon began. The police obtained footage from the apartment and saw Joseph arriving and leaving. He of course knew he was going to be found and arrested for what he had done, and right after Megan's body was found, he told his friends that he had done something bad. He was quickly identified and arrested. The police questioned him back at the station, and he told them that he and Megan were having consensual sex when all of a sudden his memory went blank. He then came round and left the apartment. But this is what happened. Once inside, Joseph took her into the bedroom, got on top of her on the bed, and strangled her for around 30 seconds, to the point that she lost consciousness. He then got up and went to the kitchen and armed himself with a knife. He then went back to the bedroom where Megan was laying face down. He raised the knife and stabbed her in the back of her neck and her back 9 times. And he stabbed her with such force that the blade went all the way through and penetrated both of her lungs. Megan was more than likely still alive before he stabbed her, but not conscious. At some point in the 90 minutes that Joseph was inside the apartment, he forced himself upon her. It's uncertain whether he did this before or after stabbing her. In the footage, he seems to be completely relaxed when leaving. He doesn't at all seem fazed at what he had just done. When leaving the apartment, he discovered that the exit to the housing complex was locked. So, he went back inside, which meant he would have had to walk past Megan's body to get the key fob so he was able to leave. The trial soon began, and initially he pleaded not guilty, but in February of 2020 he admitted to murder and 2 counts of rape, as he did so anally and vaginally. It also came out in court that there was an allegation of sexual assault that was made against Joseph when he was just aged 15. Nothing ever came of this, but as a result of the accusation, he was nicknamed Rolf Harris by his peers. Joseph then gave a motive for the killing of Megan. He said that she had told people that he was guilty of this sexual assault when he was 15, and that she had apologised that night for telling people. It was then that he lashed out. Only a month before he brutally took the life of Megan, he had tried to take his own life. He was stood on a bridge that went over a motorway, and as he was preparing himself to jump, some people came and they managed to talk him out of it. Joseph was jailed for life with a minimum sentence of at least 21 years and 65 days. And he will be placed on a sex offenders register for life. Megan's mother is angry at the police for letting him leave when they found him with drugs and being highly intoxicated. Questions were raised why they didn't make him stay in custody until the drugs wore off. It turns out that Joseph's father was an ex-police officer in the Staffordshire police force, and his mother also reportedly worked for the police too. So they could have known him through his parents, or known of him, and allowed him to leave under the condition that he goes home. No action was taken after an investigation conducted by the Independent Police Commission. One of the most eerie things about these kinds of cases is when the footage is captured on CCTV before the murder. To see this woman walk into her home with a soon-to-be killer, completely unsuspecting of what is to come, is chilling. If Megan was still alive, she should be well into her university life by now, chasing the dream of becoming a physiotherapist. But her life was cut short because she just so happened to bump into a killer at a taxi rank who took advantage of her good nature. It was pure chance. If she left the nightclub just an hour earlier, or was ill that night, or ordered an Uber rather than go to a taxi rank, she would still be alive. It's crazy to think how many times all of us could have had a run-in with a killer, but narrowly missed it by just leaving somewhere an hour early or being sick that day.